Hello, good morning, everyone. We trust you are keeping well. A very warm welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for making the time to join us for what we hope to be an insightful session. In today's webinar, we are looking to share insights, perspectives, and predictions on the trends in the technology, media, and telecommunication industry, probably known as TMT, for the 2023 year. And over the next 2 hours of the session, we will be looking at taking an address from the Deloitte Ghana TMT industry leader. This will be followed by a brief presentation on the Deloitte 2023 TMT predictions report, as well as an insightful panelist discussion that would also include a Q&A session from the attendees. Right. Okay, so for today, we are distinguished to have in our midst very, very seasoned professionals in Kofi Ewa, who is our partner for the risk advisory team, who also doubles as the TMT industry leader in Deloitte. And then Edward Akins, who is also a senior manager with the consulting team, and he would be the moderator for today's session. Coming to our distinguished members of the panel, we have in person Ethel Kofi, who is the CEO of Edel Technology Consulting, as well as Mr. Kenneth Ashibe, who is the CEO, Ghana Chamber of Telecommunications. And then last but not least, Mr. Ken Ansah, who is the COO Multimedia Group. These are our distinguished members for today's session. And I am Betty Otre, a manager with the Employee Tax Compliance Unit, Tax and Legal, and I'm a manager in there, and I will be your MC for today. Now, before we go into the session, there are a few housekeeping rules that we would want to lay down before we start. And currently, you would have noticed that all the participants have been muted. However, during the Q&A session, if you have a question, you can just raise up your hand and you will be unmuted so you can speak. And then over the session, if you have any question that you seek any clarification, any comments, you can just put that in the Q&A chat box, and these would be addressed over the course of the session. And then lastly, towards the end of the session, a survey link would be posted in the chat box to enable you provide your feedback on the session and how insightful it has been for you. And so this will be shared towards the end of the webinar. So we count on your participation for that as well. Now, in order to make the session more interactive, we have created some polls that would need your participation completion for us to begin the session. So if we can have our first poll for you to get acquainted on how it works. Yes, you can see a pop-up on your screen. This is the first poll for the day. So kindly just take a minute to read and then provide your answer to this poll. Yes, we have just about a minute. Which area are you most interested in learning about in this webinar? Yes, please kindly provide your votes, and we would begin from there. Yeah. You can see the responses coming in. Thank you very much for your participation in this. Okay, we have our final responses here. Okay, right. So we have the results here, and it seems majority are looking forward to the technology trends, and so we trust we would be able to meet that expectation over this session. All right. Now, without further ado, we would like to call on our TMT industry leader in the person of Kofi Ewa. As I indicated, he's also the partner for the risk advisory team, and he would be giving us the welcome address. So, Kofi.
Kofi Ewa is currently the risk advisory partner and technology, media, and telecom industry leader at Deloitte Ghana, with over 13 years' experience in risk management. He has worked and delivered transformational projects to global and regional clients in financial services, telecom, oil and gas, manufacturing, and public sector. Kofi has both industry and practice experience working as an ex-banker in one of the leading banks in Nigeria and as risk management specialist for two of the global Big Four professional services firms in Nigeria and Ghana. His wealth of practical experience has distinguished him as the go-to person by top industry practitioners on risk management matters.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is my great pleasure to welcome you to this year's Technology, Media, and Telecommunication Prediction Webinar. Today, as we discuss the latest trends and advancement in the rapidly evolving industry, I'm very confident that we will leave with a deeper understanding of the incredible impact that technology, media, and telecommunication have on our world. This year's webinar, we foresee the rapid advancement and deployment of a range of technologies to help businesses and consumers do more with ease. In Ghana, despite our economic challenges, the Ghanaian TMT industry have seen some growth, especially in 2022, and we still see this in 2023 and beyond. Today's webinar will highlight the biggest trends in the TMT industry and how they could impact businesses and consumers around the world, and in particular in Ghana. For us as a firm, we believe that these discussions will help shape, among other things, the investment and business decisions within the TMT space. Deloitte as a firm has a very large TMT industry grouping that brings together one of the world's largest pool of industry experts who are respected for helping companies of all shapes and sizes thrive in a digital world. The 2023 prediction will be presented to us by one of our very own, by name Edward Akins, who is a senior manager and a seasoned TMT industry expert in Deloitte, Ghana. I want to encourage all of you to participate in today's conversation with an open mind. And once again, I want to welcome you to this webinar, and I look forward to a productive and insightful discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Akins.
Edward Akins is a consultant senior manager in charge of technology services at Deloitte Ghana. He has extensive experience within the telecommunications, technology and fintech space across the UK, Middle East and Africa, and has managed roles in applications management, technology product development, and business development. Before joining Deloitte, Edward worked with Vodafone Group UK, Vodafone Ghana, Huawei West Africa, and other banking technology institutions.
Hello, good morning, team, and welcome to this year's Deloitte 2023 predictions. So my name is Edward, as mentioned, and I'll be leading you through what we believe are the predictions for 2023, and we hope that you find it insightful and it will bring some kind of context to the Ghana conversation and move it forward from there. So key topics would be around technology. I'll start from telecom, media, and screens. I'll move on to technology, and I'll speak on these key issues that we think will have impact in globally, and also some impacts in Ghana and West Africa and Africa at large. So last year we did the same presentation to you, and we mentioned to you on AI and its implications, and we can actually see growth within the legislation. America actually put in the AI Bill of Rights, and then Europe also growing their April 21st law into more fitting for the new discoveries within AI. IoT was something we spoke about. We mentioned wearables, and we've actually seen kind of a big growth, 13.89% within just fitness and wellness alone. And we can predict that the growth rate, cumulative annual growth rate, would be around 10.7 moving forward. We spoke about CO2 emissions and how technology, TMT, is concerned about that. The projection was that mobile phones and all its technical components will support a 0.4 global carbon dioxide emission for the year. And we actually saw business models that brought in place use mobile phone market size growing because people were participating in that. We saw a growth from 52 billion in 2021 to 146 billion. So we believe that people are participating, and beyond 2030, we shall see more growth in that. In the Women in Tech, we actually did see 34.4% growth as to 32% in last year. We saw that growth within the top executives in Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google change hands, and we saw women taking place in that. So that's our prediction that we did and how it has come to pass within this year. So I will move on to our technology predictions. So currently in the global target of digitizing everything from enterprise to consumer activities, there is the discussion around how do we make connectivity widespread, and the problem of coverage becomes well reduced. We have seen the growth of low Earth orbit satellites that are going to deliver satellite broadband across various areas. And Deloitte is predicting that this year alone, we will see about 5,000 broadband satellites launched into orbit to help with this acquisition, or try to make internet, democratized internet. Based on that, there's going to be, we believe that because of this strategy of broadband satellite, we will see about 7 to 10 networks. They could be actually moving into the orbit by 2030, and basically a total of 40 to 50,000 satellites serving more than 10 million users, which is quite a huge growth from the numbers that we started when the LEO constellations started. Because of this, we believe that there's going to be more congestion of these low orbit satellites that are coming to provide the internet service for us. If you look at the chart below, the growth of the launch of these LOEs or LEOs grew from 1960 up to 2000. You can see the sharp growth in there. The number of objects launched into low orbit, Earth orbit, is dramatically growing, and we see that it comes with other issues as well. The key reason why we think this is a point of discussion and it matters most is that because of the growth, we need to find a solution to choreograph how these objects are roaming within the space. So we believe that collisions would be key activity, satellites passing 1 kilometer of each other. And I think we've heard stories of those collisions and the debris it puts into space. This year, there will be quite a lot of discussions around how do we work together within the satellite broadband ecosystem to be able to not make the collision activities happen, to give us seamless internet connectivity using the satellite broadband. We believe that there would be quite a lot of discussions around how do we put in place tracking solutions and basically make sure that we have space situational awareness, that we should be able to know what's happening and also be able to manage space traffic, and then use the data to make decisions and help us in this model where we can now track objects, know where they are, and stop the collisions that will happen to interrupt the projections that we're having of about 5,000 LEO satellites coming to provide internet service across the world. This will be key for Africa because we do have the coverage issues. So I think this would be interesting. The bottom line of this solution would be that LEO constellations will in as much as will be revolutionary, would also contribute to certain things happen within the space, and therefore we need to begin to have the discussions. There has to be a collaborative engagement to bring rules of the road, if I can put it, but we can call it rules of space, to be able to enable stakeholders in the better position their solutions and also be able to manage them. A better quality and how do you call it, space situational awareness is key, and the data provided from that will be needed to make sure that we are not overwhelmed by potential collisions. With improvements in the space-borne computing, we believe that there is going to be advanced issues around radiations and stuff. It's not core to our discussion today, but we believe that the end game will be to stop certain things like the Kessler syndrome from happening again, the collusion that brought in some in 2009. In my next prediction, we're looking at, still in telecom, we're looking at telecom 5G and how it's going to be accessed. We speak on the 5G as a network on its own, but if we look at the access, we are predicting that the world will see the first affordable 5G smartphone under $100. I know 4G people did in the 4G infrastructure actually brought in other devices, but this will be definitive because of the advantages that we know 5G is going to bring for consumer and especially for enterprise. So end devices to access the service is key. For us, we believe our prediction is that there will be a launch of an affordable smartphone under $100 that will serve the cause of global digitization. The phone is likely to have a small market share, but I believe it will grow from there. If you look at the base, you can actually see the design and the affordable components that are being brought together, low estimated cost to build such a smartphone, from the camera to the phone chassis itself, and all the individual components can actually be sourced at about about $87.40, and that's phenomenal for what 5G access will help us do. So this would make sure that at least the access is key, and the dream of 5G and all its advantages shall be received at the point where we believe it's needed the most. Why this matters? It is because now network operators should look at the network they have and the business models they will go to market looking at access. And I think we take cues from what China have done in the beginning, the journey on this model. At least this first $99 5G phone will be able to be in the hands of users through a model that has subsidy in quotes as the definitive character. The device should come with pre-installed apps in order to make sure that the operators can actually get the end users use it for the purpose. Advertising would be a key component of it. You can find advertising as part of the model. The content, mobile telecom providers will find a way of building content around cloud storage, around gaming, TV, health, and shopping components, and most importantly, drive models that can help the financial inclusion using the phone. App Store control will be key because we believe that the telcos will need to build models where their own proprietary apps should be the key for their end users on their network. And lastly, we see that this first launch had happened in China. We see discussions in Africa, and we can see that going forward. We will have a discussion on that. Now, what's the bottom line for this? In the long term, we see that in as much as it starts as a niche area, it will grow into mainstream. And the key focus would be to get devices in the hands of people to drive education, to guide work, and actually to guide recreation. That would be the bargain. And as such, we believe that this should lead discussions for those telecom ecosystem in Africa, West Africa, and Ghana, although we've not started the 5G discussions yet, will begin to be the model for this low-cost smartphone and what it will bring to the end users and also the business models around them. The next one, we're going to talk about the network for 5G itself. So there's been quite extensive discussions around the 5G, and we believe that this will bring phenomenal change in the networks that they provide across globally. So most 5G wireless today actually have the hybrid model where they use the 5G antennas and let it sit on top of the 4G LTE networks. We shall see the standalone 5G come into play. And if you see my graph on the right, the discussions from 2018 up until the first quarter of 2022, the models had always, the expenditure had always been on the, how do you call it, non-standalone 5G models. You can see the extended graph on the now, how telcos across the world are expending extra capers and installing and setting up the numbers to be able to bring a standalone, to be able to enable the full capacity of what 5G can deliver to the market. The key users here and the beneficiaries will be the enterprise market. Why is this of key importance to us? We believe that the standalone 5G network can lead a unified end-to-end network because it will be able to orchestrate from the end devices on the market all the way to the back-end core of telecom service providers. It will reduce complexity, it will bring flexibility and scalability. It will also bring new innovations because it's software driven. It can actually help network be able to launch AI innovations and immediately and extensively, and also be able to include autonomous AI features on top. The most important and exciting bit is that it can actually offer network slicing where we can actually provide enterprise application on a tenanted dedicated network, part of the core 5G network of enterprises, of the telcos. The bottom line is that the real MNOs will now begin to enjoy migration into proper 5G standalones. It will be able to bring us the capacity that would unlock full potential for enterprises, as I mentioned. The challenges would be there because investment would be key. Integration with the core network of the old system would be key. And also, most importantly, the technology shift and change will impact on talent you have within the telecom ecosystem. And therefore, beyond the technical part, you need to be able to build capacity for overall working and transiting from the old system to a new software-based 5G network solution. So those are the challenges that we'll have to discuss with the standalone 5Gs, and mobile and the ecosystem for telecom should be mindful of that. Now, moving on to the next prediction, which basically would be within the media sector. So we are now seeing a shift between the video on demand and how it's playing out in the market. There is this advertising video on demand that is gradually finding its way in the audience. And as such, it's impacting certain models that are already on the market. Deloitte predicts that the 2/3 of the consumers will, in developing countries and the ones that are emerging, will begin at least the 5% will increase the usage of advertising video on demand, which means advertising will be part of the content that is delivered. By the end of 2024, half of these providers will launch a free ad-supported streaming service to augment the product portfolio that they have currently. If you look at the base, you can see the change when the model changes. So if you are providing 12 minutes of ad per hour in a content that is delivered with no monthly subscription, you can see the numbers grow from there, from 34% all the way to another 34 within various territories across the world. If it's reduced by 6 minutes, but then they have a lower model for monthly subscription, the penetration is also different. So we believe that at least with this 50% discount on the exchange between adverts and content will make the market a little bit bigger, and therefore the players within that ecosystem would have to be mindful of their business model. Why is it a big matter? It is because there's now going to be a fight for churn Do we offer AVOD or we do it for fast? So free advertisement services or full adverts on demand. The churn problem is there. Therefore, the model for media ecosystem should be able to plan accordingly. The fundamental drivers will generate additional revenue. So if companies are modeled properly, they'll be able to be more profitable with these new models between providing a fast or an AVOD system across your how do you call it, the media ecosystem. Consumers will see discounts, and that will really bring them comfort, and then usage will increase from there as well. The bottom line is that by virtue of this AVOD model, there is going to be a very big inclusive audience for this market, and as such, consumers will gradually begin to migrate gracefully. And I think subscription-based services will see its decline, but if they model it differently, they can see that something will, new users will grow onto their market. Now, the new strategy around would be to also look at how you can actually build in live sports activities to augment, because the growth of sports, live sports services coming with gaming, coming with betting and all that included in it, we see a new trend where the streaming world is now fighting with other entertainment and telecom companies to be able to build models where they can deliver live sports sessions. If you look at the bottom, you can actually see a shift in rights being paid by various companies, Viacom to DAZN for EPL and La Liga and also NFL. The rates are now increasing because they are buying rights to be able to provide these services to end users. Why does it matter? It does matter because funds are gradually aggregating towards moving and being able to enjoy streaming services. Therefore, this innovation will personalize the gaming experience and streaming experience as well. And thus, we are sure that they'll begin to see the numbers grow from that perspective. Facing greater competition, you need to now look at your subscriber churns and how to model such live sporting activities as part of it. You need to be able to consider the technical part of it, using special production tools to use to deliver professional content, and also be able to move from 4K picture quality to 8K, and also the latency should be reduced in such a way that users can actually do certain activities like in-game betting as well. So the bottom line is streaming providers for sports organization should balance the short-term and long-term plan to be able to focus on the subscription model, advertising model, and also the fast model as well. This will be able to help them improve their streaming capabilities and also be able to expand their streaming influence as well for new numbers. Now we move into something that is kind of interesting and exciting to all of us. Deloitte is predicting there's going to be social shopping boom, because we now see the growth for this how do you call it, social commerce surpass 1 trillion globally, and this is big deal. It is because now you can actually interact with systems and be able to transact end-to-end without leaving Facebook, Instagram, or any other thing. You can see the growth. These were actual numbers from 2020, 524 billion, all the way to projected 2023. We can see the growth of about 1.024 billion in this space. So we are saying that this should be areas that other ecosystem players should really look into. It will be key and it will be important because now influencers and creators will be key component of it all. Social media would now begin to see receptive audience across that, because now you can actually transact completely with the interactions of what you discover in those commerce platforms. And then now you need to be able to model Gen Z, who are now getting to a place of being able to actually make money on their own because of their age group. They now need to be built a new journey to start enjoying. This is the multi-billion social media boom, and then organizations should be able to look forward to that. It is very important. The bottom line is that brands would now be able to get in there, do a good work, influence and attract users to their portals, and be able to complete transactions and maybe bring this shoppable experience to commerce that we've never seen before and drive new engagements from there. My last prediction will be around technology. So battle for the enterprise, edge. We've spoken about telecom, media. Now we'll look at the core technology itself that is bringing excitement to businesses. A lot of data processing is done in the cloud first. It started in data centers, moving to the cloud. Now it's moving to the edge. This is happening because enterprise strategies on AI, industrial IoT and other models are increasing. Latency to the cloud is increasing, and as such, data should be processed at the edge. Because of this, we are seeing all hyperscalers seeing the growth in this edge computing processing for immediate real-time response to end users. Based on that, they are also, hyperscalers are now investing in that. We are seeing 22% growth in expenditure for enterprise at the edge, and as such, the ecosystem are now looking to what is innovation they can develop in those areas to be able to have a boom in there. The hyperscalers have grown for the past 10 years, double digits year on year. And as such, if there's a new area within IT, enterprise IT is growing and they are seeing some kind of growth in there, they would want to also invest as well. And this is what they are doing here. We project that there's going to be beyond 20% growth in 2023. And this is of a big importance because there will be about 150 billion generating about 175 zettabytes of data. It's happening at the edge by 2025. It needs to be processed. Therefore, this area is going to be a good area. Edge computing will bring benefits to cloud users, and then it will shift the conversation around buying infrastructure and building infrastructure within the cloud to the edge. And therefore, enterprises should take note of this. It will also be supported and augmented by the growth of 5G to be able to deploy enterprise-wide operational platforms to help them excel. We should also be mindful of one thing. There is a development of this new marketplace, and as such, the stakeholders are growing. Like I mentioned, all partnerships and alliances will be key, because then there will be scramble for the market share. If partnership comes in, alliances comes in, the ecosystem will be benefiting, because they will collaboratively innovate and bring new solutions to this edge that we're talking about. And there's also the discussion around the net zero discussion. So technology is making its fair contribution in supporting the CO2 emissions, and the discussions are now being done properly within, the boardrooms, and CXOs are putting this in discussion. If you look at the graph at the bottom, before the end of 2030 and before that, we are seeing tech see 75% of CXOs saying that they have CO2 emission as part of the technology delivery agenda. And we are predicting that this is going to be a key factor for sustainability. We predict that industry will move faster in this climate and net zero discussions, and we'll see it impacting in the product and solution they buy and deliver using technology. Why it matters? It does because tech executives will immediately be part of this mitigation of climate change. 42% of tech executives report that the operations have impacted climate, and therefore in future they'll be working around making sure their outputs are supporting CO2 emissions. Tech leaders worry more about climate change because of its impact, and therefore for their business sustainability, they are also making discussions. Tech companies lead several broad ways tackling CO2 reduction. They are also making products that are climate friendly as well, and that's a keynote for all that. We cannot end this technology discussions without talking about AI and ChatGPT. 2022 saw this generative AI become mainstream discussion. Google and the social media loaded with information on search on OpenAI's ChatGPT. What comes next? The discussion is happening in how this will imply or this will impact on enterprise solution delivery. There's also, in this few months from December up till I think about March, there's a discussion around GPT-4, which will be released within this first few months, and that will be able to help us extend the functionality in the future. We all see that ChatGPT could be able to deliver. When ChatGPT was launched in November, the chart below shows the search for AI and its components from 2020. In November, you see the spike in the request and the interest in OpenAI's ChatGPT, and we believe that that is a sign enough for the interests that are coming from individual learners and also enterprise business model developers. There's a capacity for a new market to be developed from that in trillions of dollars. Why should companies take note of this? The basic implementation of the generative models will bring a new model, and as such, they will be able to shape the delivery of institutions and businesses as well, and education. The key technology, this is going to be a key technology for the future. It will affect all industries, including education and also manufacturing as well. We've seen that in the chipset development using AI within us. You can also see it's going to be a red light for certain institutions. For example, if I can speak and get my search request, why should I go and use Google? So it's a code red for Google and the big people at Alphabet, and they are thinking of how to remodel their business case. Generative AI will be seen as a key helper to create amazing things because of the data. This is exciting because it will not only use historic data, it can actually be able to make information from future information as well, be able to interact and get feedback, and also be able to accept its mistakes and move from there. So that's the excitement of AI and ChatGPT. And we believe that within this year, there's going to be various corridors of discussions for technology. And we have highlighted 10 places you can go and connect in all technology changes and its models. Some we didn't speak on here, but we believe that from Accra to Nigeria to Johannesburg, there will be a place for you to go and sit in the corridors of technology growth. And I believe that the first place you can start from is the Mobile World Barcelona, which is happening, I think, in next week or something. So thank you for your time. And I believe that I've given you insightful information, and you will enjoy the rest of our discussions. There will be a quick poll to really show us how you guys have taken the content we have shared. And I believe this will be able to take us into the panel discussion where all will benefit from. Thank you very much. So yes, if you can interact with the poll, we want to understand which of the following TMT that we shared was of good importance to you. Trends do you think will have the biggest impact in the near future? We have broadband satellite, as I mentioned, to democratize connectivity, 5G smartphones to bring excitement in a niche market and grow from there, or advertisement of video on demand will increase. Also, live sports in the streaming industry currently happening, shopping, and we call it shoppable commerce that is growing, and all the other questions. Please let me know what you think of, as it's been on your screens. Just vote for us to see the outcomes. We have about a minute or so to go on this one. So there's also technology for okay, so this would take a while. You can only select one answer for each, and we'll just go to view how exciting this presentation has been for you and how you think it can impact your various enterprises. So clearly we can see the interest on 5G smartphones is growing 66% at the moment. And then also democratizing internet connectivity using the LEO broadband satellite, also coming in the second place, 17%. Social media shopping at par with the LEO, 17% as well. Only 1% is interested in video advertising on video on demand. Okay, so this, let me share the results. Okay, so we have 17% on broadband satellites from LEO. We have 67% from smartphone, 5G smartphone, its capabilities, advertising, video on demand, 1%. live streaming was 0%, and media media shopping 17% as well. Sorry. With this, we will move into our panel discussions, and we will use this as a basis for our conversation.
Dr. Engineer Kenneth Ashige is the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana Telecommunications Chamber. Prior to his appointment, he was Managing Director of Graphic Communications Group Limited. Before then, he was the Chief Operating Officer for Multi TV, General Manager of Joy FM, as well as the Chief Technology Officer of the group at different times. He left Funnel Limited, a building services engineering company, as a Senior Project Engineer. He is the convener of the Media Coalition Against LMC and an advocate of media freedom and campaigner against attacks on journalists and media workers in Ghana. Named one of the top 5 women influencing technology across Africa, Ethel Kofi is the founder and CEO of Edo.
Okay, so I will encourage Dr. Ken Asibe to open up his mic and join me for the discussion. So the panel is ready, and I have a few questions. We're also encouraging our audience to also share the questions in the chat, or you can use the Q&A component to send your questions through. So, Doctor, you are welcome. If you can open up your camera, I have a few questions for you as well.
Edward, I can see you. Can you see me?
I cannot based on what I'm opening, but let me just make.
I can see you.
Okay. Yeah, so that's fine. I can see you too, Doc. Welcome.
Right.
So,
thank you.
I have a few questions for you just to kickstart our discussion on what we discussed for our predictions 2023. In this age of data, big data, and the need for real-time activity processing, the fight for digital supremacy is on. And I spoke about the enterprise edge. It cannot be underestimated. Alongside, sorry, this question is actually for technology. Let me move to my questions around telecom before I come to technology. So SL, if you can get ready for me. So Doc, apologies for that. On the promise of 4G, didn't go as according to plan. We promised coverage, global and universal coverage and stuff like that. It didn't come to pass. There's only 59% penetration of 4G currently. But now we've started discussions around 5G. Why are we having conversations about 5G and its devices? Will the investments and the current user demands, especially whet the hype? Doc, this question is for you.
Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. Interestingly, last year in MWC in Barcelona, there was conversation about 6G when, you know, we had, nothing has happened so far as 5G is concerned in Africa. And with connections, 50 million unique mobile users by the end of 2020. Mobile has a greater reach in Africa than any other technology and making an important enabler for social and economic. In that sense, 5G is a necessary tool, and it continues to remain relevant to customers, enterprises, governments, and society as a whole. The importance of mobile and 5G in particular has become even more profound as the world emerges out of the COVID-19, and we all know what is done to our country. But it's still early days readiness and ecosystem maturity in West Africa. And there was a recent survey done by GSMA, and majority of the stakeholders believe that 5G ecosystem in their respective markets was not sufficiently developed. However, 5G in Africa, and for that matter, Ghana, is a matter of when, not if. You know, the decision on when to launch 5G is often based on a number of factors. In the local market, that reflects readiness of operators to roll out 5G and readiness for customers and enterprises to adopt 5G services and then 5G-enabled solutions. In Africa, the present-day scenario suggests that 5G mass market readiness is some way off. Despite large market size, a population of 1.3 billion in total, most of the markets, have a population of over 5 million. Ghana has over 32 million. But 4G is still in its infancy, accounting for just 25% connections on the average, though the global average is 60%, connections being 4G. And affordability of devices is also a major challenge. And then digital literacy, that's what tends to be the challenge. So in Ghana, we have 4G. We look at it graphically, but in terms of the number of connections that are using 4G, and we still have 2G connections. There's a challenge of devices, even where coverage is. There's the issues of even the content, the right content.
Okay, I think we are having technical issues. Doc, can you hear me? Okay, once we get the Doc's connectivity fixed, we'll prepare for the other panelists to be introduced, so we can start working on their questions as well. So if the technical team are ready, can you just introduce the other panel members for me?
Named one of the top 5 women influencing technology across Africa, Ethel Kofi is the founder and CEO of Edo Technology Consulting, a firm that works primarily on board and C-level business and digital transformation advisory, and was named IT Consulting Firm of the Year by the Telecoms and IT industry in Ghana in 2017. She sits on numerous boards, including one of West Africa's largest insurance firms, fintech and logistics startups across East and West Africa. She is the chair of the Ghana Government ICT Sector Skills Board, where she is involved with design and implementation of computer science curriculum for technical universities.
Welcome, Ethel, to the program. And we'll get back to you. I've got interesting questions for you as well. Could we also introduce our third panelist for us? Then we can have all our panelists available.
Ken Ansah is the Chief Operating Officer of Multimedia Group Limited, Ghana's most dominant media entity, and leads the company's One Vision, One Team, One Multimedia agenda across its radio, television, and digital platforms. Ken has held senior management roles in reputable international and local companies. He was the CEO of KNet Limited and CFO of the Multimedia Group before his current role. He also had a distinguished career spanning 16 years in leadership positions in finance and audit at Unilever, Ghana, South Africa, and Germany.
Okay, thank you very much, my panelists. You're welcome. So, Ken, before you said you needed 5G, I put a question to you and it gave a good answer. Let me follow up with this. Let me follow up with this next question. I think we need to make sure that Mr. Ken Ansah is also live on there. If you can get your cameras up, Ken, I'll be very grateful. So, Doc, we talked about the 4G and its implications for Africa. How do you think this widespread adoption of 5G and all the advances it claims to deliver, how do you think this will impact Africa? And if you can come down to Ghana, can you share your thoughts on how do you think extension of 4G can rise into 5G and how it will shape the economy of our country? Hi, Ken. Hi, Doc. Okay, So if we're having technical issues with Dr. Kenashigbe, I think the technical guys should be able to help him on that.
As I say, in
okay, you're live
we'll
now.
see a lot of expansion in the 4G.
Okay, apologies for the technological hitch. Doc, are you back on?
I'm back on. Yes. I definitely need to get the 5G, working. I don't know what's happening to my device today.
Okay.
But I'm saying that, so we need to, on the regulation side, we need to work on regulation, make sure that technology neutrality happens so that operators are able to get, with the spectrum they have, they're able to do both 4G and 5G and whatever technology that they want to use. We need to push the boundary of fiber as well, a lot more fiber into homes, so that a lot of the bandwidth hungry devices that a lot of young people are using, we are able to do it. We cannot be left behind in the 5G conversation. Unfortunately for us, because of the challenges I mentioned, and also when it comes to enterprise, a lot of our enterprises are micro, small scale, so they might not be the places, but a few of the big players be able to use 5G. Some industries would be able to use 5G. We would need 5G for a lot of the novelty that comes when you look into the issues of even Medicare, especially in situations where you don't have a lot of doctors spread throughout the country. The low latency of 5G, the high, throughput of 5G would enable you at the theater table in Asadapo can have a doctor sitting in Accra, do surgery. So you need that. In our agriculture, we would need a lot of that happening. Recently, we were having a conversation about urban policy, and government is looking at smart cities and all of that. That's definitely going to, so you are going to see 5G going to be slapped on top of 4G. So we'll do a lot of the non-standalones in Africa. The standalones might come, so that you then are able to have private networks for some industries. But you see a lot of the conversation when 5G comes, it will be a non-standalone. We'll be pushing a lot more of the 4G. We'll be pushing a lot more of fiber. The low-flying broadband satellite is also something that definitely is going to get into our market. Because we definitely need the speed. We need a capacity. There are a lot of young people also coming up with some very interesting solutions and all of that. And they would also need those, speeds and latency to be able to do the things they're doing. Agriculture is really going to be another thing, because we're going to drive a lot of IoT, in that particular space to be able to support a lot of the things that we ought to do. So in as much as 5G might be a bit late in coming, maybe I see it in MTN was almost going to launch, it's been deferred. I am pretty sure by 2026, 27, you begin to see 5G being slapped on top of 4G. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to move a lot more and deploying a lot more fiber, more of the low, flying satellites for broadband, and then also a mix of making sure that the devices are available. Our challenge, that is our major challenge. The challenge is the availability of devices, because in the 4G space, the median is around $39. You talk $100 for 5G. That's definitely too expensive for the African market. So we would need to find ways in which we can make devices very affordable. That would mean government's policy in terms of taxation has to be looked at. So you take taxes out of all of this. Government needs to also look into making sure that we can attract enough investment so that the operators can invest into it. That would mean that when we come to auctioning spectrum for 5G, we should not do like what we did for 4G, where we did 60 million for 2x10 for the 4G for MTN, or 10 million by the 2x5 when we did Vodafone as well. We need to copy the examples of China, of the Scandinavians, where spectrum is given to you at a very low rate, and then you are rather mandated to ensure that you have coverage everywhere. But coverage everywhere in Africa, a lot of our challenge is not just coverage, it's about usage. So how do we move that under 25% usage up? It would mean, being able to stimulate a lot of growth in terms of the content provision. And for me, I think, will not be able to read like they do in other markets. We need to use a lot. We do our things. And just you face with a lot of the adults is the fact that even doing basic mobile money, they would have to give the device to somebody to go and do for them.
Yeah.
To the point where now you can do a video, you can do a voice to be able to activate someone who wants to do something and using videos to do more bandwidth to be able to do. It is the reason why we're not developed, but we'd rather need the 5G more than the very developed world where almost everything else is in place. There's a lot of work that we need to do. Though the investment that are required are high, the use cases are not really well defined. Governments need to also put in the pull factor, the demand factor, to be able to get demand for some of these services that would attract investment into the space.
Thank you very much, Doc, for your insightful answer to the question that we gave. So I'll give our TMT leader, Kofi Iwia, a minute or two to just give his feedback on the question that I posed to Dr. Ashibe. Kofi, if you're available, you can come on.
Yeah, thanks, Ed, and thanks, Doc. I think you have spoken right, and most of the challenges have been highlighted. I just want to indicate that when it comes to the usage and also the market, just as you mentioned, government policies needs to drive this. In recent time, I think we've seen some few from the government, and we will encourage more. If you're aware, there's this rural telephoning project that the government of Ghana is rolling out in order to create opportunity for connectivity to be available to people outside of the urban area. So I think that is a laudable project, and we want to see more of this because the telecommunication companies would not just make investment in areas where there is low usage because it's cost them a lot. So government needs to help to drive that, and then it create and integrate with the government agenda, digital agenda, which is what we are looking at. So I think you've nailed it, and we need to encourage different stakeholders, especially from the government perspective, to see how best to drive, the use of the 4G network, and also helping to migrate to 5G. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Kofi, and thank you, Doc. Doc, I'll come back to you again. I have a few other questions for you. Now we'll speak on technology. We'll ask Ethel a few questions, and then we'll come back to Mr. Kenansa. Ethel, nice to meet you, and good morning. Ethel, I've had to share content around technology and basically spoke around the edge. And I was asking this question earlier. In the age of the big data, the need for real-time data is real-time activity processing is key. Therefore, this fight around supremacy for the edge has become a contention at the moment. Edge computing is capturing new attention by enterprise IT. Our predictions actually said that there will be 22% growth in IT expenditure on this. How do you think, Ethel, this is for you, how will this play out in the large to medium scale organizations in this big edge computing discussion? Organization that actually has local roots in Ghana, how would they be able to play within this space and be able to be competitive as well? Right. Over to you, Ethel.
I suppose it's 22% increase in expenditure. I suppose getting more computing firepower it seems in line with just the normal growth of things. I think that there's the battle now for a lot of from SMEs to mid-sized to large organizations in the conversation between keeping data and computing in-house or outsourcing. And I think that's more I think that's the bigger question as to whether there's going to be more expenditure on hardware if the trend becomes that people are a little bit more wary of data protection laws, more wary of content protection and data protection, and so we'll be bringing things in-house. Then you will most likely see an increase in just more firepower, more hardware. Now, if the conversation becomes, we are comfortable enough, mind you, that the data protection laws are, there's a lot of data protection laws available. Implementation is a little, implementation and compliance is a little bit lax at the moment, if I may say. And so if organizations feel like, especially when we're in an economic downturn, it might just be that the cheaper option is the outsourcing option. And just for a 12-month, it's 12 months, 24 months, 72 months sort of time span, you might see a contraction and then maybe less expenditure. That's just my view, just based on the economic situation that we're in. Yeah, those are my thoughts on sort of just more firepower, more hardware in terms of growth. The interesting thing, though, I think, is the conversation that needs to be had is depending on who you're serving, right? It's how you're going to be able to provide. Like I can say, data is what do you call it? Mobile is the biggest tool. And one of the things I always say is if you put wider reach and you're not doing beyond Accra, Kumasi, then it doesn't matter the firepower that you have behind AI, how sophisticated your backend is, your delivery must be simple because unfortunately, feature phones still rule this market. And so the conversation, even for large organizations, who you're selling to. Who you're selling to is holding your average device. And it doesn't matter how beautiful your back end is, you must deliver in cheap, easy, accessible ways.
Thank you very much, Ethel. So my follow-up question would be around what we just talked about, but a little bit more stooped into the economy of Ghana, basically. So we've seen quite a lot of activities happening in Ghana for interest in global institutions that are tech-driven. Google, Twitter, I know the discussion around Twitter is still ongoing. Google and other AI activities, research centers happening in Ghana here. Do you think the current economic situation we are in is technology friendly, and as such, it will be able to bring into the country more technology businesses and startups moving forward? Is there the confidence to financially invest here?
Yeah, I think it's less about economics and more about the talent on growth, right? So according to the IFC, there are about 690,000 technology professionals, programmers, especially in Africa. And something like 6 to 7% of those reside in Ghana. We're in the top 10 of tech talent that is in Africa, right? So if you're a Google or you're a Twitter, and you're looking for a place to set up, Ghana is a great, perfect example. One, because we have a large pool of talent, and number two, we're really good proximity to Nigeria, which means if you want to go to larger markets around us, you can use us as a great base, a comfortable base as you may. We are very attractive, I think, to large organizations. And you'll see, right, from the Microsoft to your, you'll see the sort of the growth coming. We're a country, we're very attractive. Now, the economic situation might actually make it that it's cheaper for organizations to come here because just in terms of paying talent, it's less. You pay a little less than you would pay, say, in South Africa, and I think even in Kenya. And so the economic situation, I think, might be an interesting, especially if you are using Ghana as a base to reach out across Africa, and that your largest market is not Ghana per se, that you're reaching out to Nigeria, you're using it as a base to Kenya, South Africa, those sort of spaces. And Ghana, the economic situation is actually really helpful in that regard.
All right, thank you very much. So, Mr. Kenansa, I have a few questions on media. Yes, I can hear you, Ethel. Yes, so thank you very much. I was actually moving to ask a few questions on the media, and I hope Mr. Ansan's mic is ready. So good morning, Mr. Ken Ansan, and I hope you enjoyed our presentation. I think the media side is very exciting. And within the global space, we are seeing trends which I've just shared and our predictions in our space across Africa and Ghana specifically. What are some of the most significant media trends you guys have observed in the recent years? And what do you think the impact they have on the Ghanaian media industry? So over to you, Mr. Ansan.
Thank you, Edward, and good morning to my co-panelists, and then also to everyone around this virtual table. It's a very exciting conversation, and the media side kind of sits on the foundations that Mr. Shigbe and Ethel have all, built so far. There can't be meaningful media without technology as the backbone. So those conversations are very critical. But I mean, we are seeing media running at a very fast rate. The pace over the past few years has been phenomenal. And because we are always learning from what is happening out there in terms of in developed economies, we don't have the pain of going through the learnings and a longer learning curve. So it happens and we pick on, it happens and we pick on. And so in the media space, suddenly, you are seeing content moving from boxes and people making appointments to go and consume content to now content consumption happening on the go. Either it is on video or audio or even text. They're all happening on the go. Nobody is kind of waiting and saying, I have to sit by the radio at 12 noon those days or 7 p.m. to know what is happening. Today, as things happen, people already know, and it is the way they consume content. So it is happening very fast. And it is because platforms for these content have become very available for various reasons. I mean, internet availability, handset availability, and all those are there. So people can easily, plug in and they are consuming content. So that is a huge thing we have seen in the media space and media consumption. We've also seen citizenship journalism. You don't have a group so-called that are journalists today. Almost everybody is doing some kind of journalism in one way or the other. You have your phone, you have your tool, you plug in and you are doing journalism, whether it is about a good story somewhere that is being told or drawing attention to something that requires somebody's input and something that needs to be done. And we are also seeing, the way people consume content. Long form content is kind of, I won't say it's dying, but people don't have that long attention span anymore. So they want short form content. Tell me the thing in 1 minute. Today, if you send me an audio and it is more than 2 minutes, I might come back later to it, right? 1 minute is perhaps even more than enough. If you have two things to say them in 1 30-second audio and another 30-second audio. So people are kind of on the move and consuming content in bits and pieces, short form. And so you have to catch people's attention in a way that is different than before. You have to be succinct, you have to be clear, you have to be, factual, and at the same time, you have to be impactful and sum everything up within that very short period and move on. And so these are things that we've seen, I would say, within a very short time. And I think COVID also kind of sped up this move in a very fast way. We all knew it was coming, it has been there, but kind of COVID made things far more faster. I mean, look at what we are doing today around this table, okay? And I think, we could have done that way before COVID, but kind of COVID made all these new things and new ways of engaging more possible. So significant changes in the media space, yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Ken, for your answer. So I'm also going to encourage our viewers and our participants to also make their questions available for the panelists to discuss. It could be a question, it could be an input, it could be a contribution. We'll be interested in that. So Ken, my second question for you will be around the model. So I discussed new models that are coming our way fast, AVOD, SVOD, and all that bit. How is in Ghana and maybe across Africa, how are the business models and revenue streams doing in combination of advertisement and also sustaining technology to be able to capture those revenues? If I could put it straightforward, advertisement supporting video demands is gradually surging. How are you guys managing your mainstream traditional TV and online streaming activities as well to build a model that can generate enough revenue and also be able to keep the technologies that you have?
I would say some of these innovations and initiatives are kind of perhaps even in the matured space already in some of the markets out there. In our market, these are still pretty new. But the media space is a bit complex because you have to balance influence and audience on one hand with advertising revenue on another. And behind these two, you have to support that with technology. You can have influence, you can have audience, but you don't have revenue. You can see people having revenue available they want to spend, but you must get them the right group of people, in other words, the audience, for them to tap into. So you always have to balance these spaces. Sometimes you are even asking yourself, am I spending too fast ahead in terms of technology? And when you come to AI use and other things that are being used out there, you ask yourself, look, if I invest in these things, are they going to lead to incremental audience numbers and so advertising revenue or not? So you always have to balance. You always have to balance this. Now, in our space, especially when you're operating in a free-to-air market where you ride on advertising revenue, often these are decisions that are taken outside you. How much someone wants to invest in advertising is more something that is driven by their business, their strategy, what they want to achieve within a certain period, which is largely outside your control. Even at a bigger level, how the economy is doing, these are all variables that come into someone's decision to say, I want to spend 100 cedis or 200 cedis. Now, this still doesn't stop you or doesn't limit you as to how influential and impactful you have to be. So you may have to still be spending, okay, and may have to tap into advertising revenue that is reducing. So it is a pretty complex market. And especially, as I said, when you also have a lot of citizen journalists coming through, doing TikTok, doing YouTube and all those, and spreading the advertising revenue much thinner, then traditional media is now surviving on much less advertising revenue. But you still have to come in with credible, impactful, influential content, and you have to invest. So the skills seem to be tilting in different directions, and you always have to bring this together. I think at the core of traditional media is then what is media standing for, or what is media doing? And besides everything and the numbers, media is also meant to influence people positively and make a positive difference. So those are things that you have to do as well. If you are reporting and spending money on classrooms that don't have furniture, for example, that may not give you money, but you still have to invest in that because as a media organization, you have to make positive impact in people's lives. So in the space of AVOD and those, yes, they are for us, they are still new in the market because the advertisers who understand that space are not even in this market. So how do you then prepare your content in a way that it becomes accessible to people outside Ghana? It can be consumed by people beyond Ghana, and then you can place adverts on it advertisers who are not even within Ghana on those platforms. And so that's when you begin to look beyond the geographical location of Ghana, and you say, how do I push my content out there on streaming platforms, on AVODs and all those, and tap into foreign advertisers who find my content and the audience I'm gathering exciting, right? But for advertisers within Ghana, we are not there yet. They still kind of prefer the traditional adverts, a platform, sorry, and where they believe it makes impact quickly and speaks to their local audience or consumers on one-to-one basis. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ansah, for your feedback. So I'm going to get back to you, Dr. Ken, again. We've spoken extensively on telecom, 5G network and the devices. My question next for you would be around emerging technology. So how do you see emerging technologies and its likelihood of biggest impact in a Ghana telecom? If you can speak across Africa, I'll be excited, but how do you see emerging technologies making an impact in the telecom industry ecosystem across Africa and specifically in Ghana?
Well, so thank you very much. Everything Etel says and what Ken also says, you know, are the things that are driving a lot of the things that are going to happen in the telecom sector. You are finding out that increasingly we're moving from being a telecom coming in terms of voice, you do very pushing in, you have the EMIs, the mobile money space, also beginning to push in terms, so you're going to see that movement. You're going to see the telecommunication industry becoming more like a platform. Communication providers see that, you know, they're moving to the cloud space is something that is going to happen. And all of this is being driven by, you know, the emerging technology. So AI is going to drive a lot of the things that happen. It is going to drive the way in which the telecommunication network themselves are managing, you know, the engineering of telecommunication is going to impact the way they manage their interaction with customers. Is going to impact the way product development is done. The issues of big data is definitely a combination of that. Is going to drive a lot of the things they do. So when Ken talks about the issues of advertising and the challenges with the new models, it's also because a lot of advertising in Ghana is not influenced by data. But fortunately for us, with AI coming in, with big data coming in, advertisers are going to now start becoming smart and be able to look at their return on investment when they put advertising with them. So players, you know, like Ken and his group, who would take insights seriously, then will begin to benefit a lot more. So you're going to see IoT, you know, also being on the increase. A lot of IoT, you know, the uptake of IoT is going to happen, both at the industrial IoT level, and as you mentioned, you know, the wearables are also going to increase. We're going to see a lot of that in healthcare coming in. In the issues of manufacturing, you see a bit of it there, but I see a lot of it also, you know, going in the in agriculture area because of our peculiar nature, that is a place that we're set. Then technology within the fintech, you know, and the startup space is really going to pick up. Unfortunately, in Ghana, if you look at our focus has been fintech. We've not looked at the other places. Cleantech is not something we've looked at. EduTech, unfortunately, after we, you know, COVID hit us, it's as if we've gone back again to sleep, you know, and we're not taking advantage of that. But it's another area that if we say we'll wait for government, it won't happen. So I'm sure we're going to start seeing some startups coming into the EduTech, the education sector. And then businesses are going to use a lot more of the combination of AI, big data, you know, to be able to try and serve their customers a bit better. It would be interesting to see how we also position ourselves in this after regime that we have. You know, that some of the challenges that we need to deal with is taking the boundaries off, you know, the sovereignty issues, so that you can have data moving across Yes, we need to look at the issues of data protection. We need to look at the issues of cybersecurity. You know, those things really are going to be important. Another challenge is really we need to deal with that also becomes an opportunity. Cybersecurity. You know, we have a lot of micro and medium and small scale organizations. Cannot afford, you know, the protection, the technology that needs to protect themselves. But they also have, if you put them all together, they are a huge market for the cyber, you know, attackers. So I'm sure that there's a market going to come for designing micro cyber security products for micro and small businesses. If we don't do that, you know, you are going to have the cyber fraudsters, you know, turn their attention from hitting, you know, so ransomware would move away from hitting just the small ones and start focusing on how do I bring a lot of these small ones together and be able to hit them. So, you know, we will have to find, we're going to be seeing solutions in that particular area. And the point you make about clean technology and all of that, that a combination of, you know, I'm pretty sure that we're going to see startups beginning to start looking at how they offer, you know, that kind of service also in the market. So that is going to happen. Another thing that we're going to see is that there's going to be a big push so far as fiber is concerned, especially the last mile fiber. I know government itself is trying to push in that direction because connectivity is going to be important. Currently, spectrum is a problem, and I'm sure all of us experience it, the challenges, and it's all because we don't have enough spectrum available. And so people will need to push the issue of using other technologies to augment being able to get connectivity to the last mile.
All right. Thank you very much, Doc. And I think you mentioned on something which I want Ethel to come in and talk about once we open up our discussion for our participants to also join and ask us questions. So Ethel, Doc just mentioned cybersecurity. So my question is to you, whilst we wait for other people to join in, is how do you think the cybersecurity conversation is had in Ghana? Are we innovative enough, and are we prepared to really face on the global players who are targeting small institutions, as Doc mentioned? Is Ghana ready for a cybersecurity fight? And when you are done, maybe Kofi from them, Kofi, where our TMT partner, can also chip in here. So Ethel, to you, over to you.
Sure. Before that, I wanted to sort of add to a few things that Ken had said. So he's absolutely right on sort of the telecom using AI and machine language. I just saw an article, MTN Benin, which is run by Uche, who used to be in Ghana, where they are now, you know, there's a partnership to use in their networks to use AI and machine learning for optimization. So that's a trend that I think, if it's starting from a small market like that, I can see it grow. And then the second thing on clean tech. So, I think there's going to be a lot more clean tech companies in the next 12 to 48 months because there's more funding available. So the conversation around clean tech has meant that there has been more funding from bilateral organizations and pushing the sort of green agenda. And so when more money becomes available, more startups will suddenly begin to spring from the ground. All right, so now, Edward, your question was around
cybersecurity. So without all that happening, are we alert to what is happening security-wise?
So the thing has always been risk and compliance has always been an issue with SMEs, and cybersecurity is in that same pot, right? The thing is, for most small and mid-sized companies, if the conversation is around survival, then cybersecurity then becomes a distant third or fourth conversation. Now, what might happen is if there is a big enough risk in the market, if there is a big enough issue, right? There's a big enough issue where it erupts enough for people to see the clear distinction between protecting your data, protecting, you know, access to your organization, and risks to your business growth. You'll be able to see both there. So what I would say is I'm beginning to see more cybersecurity professionals than I've seen in maybe the last 5 years. So there are more they're easily accessible, which is very interesting. I'm seeing more and more, and also especially more women in the cybersecurity space. So seeing more talent in that space, which means that large-sized companies and some mid-sized companies are hiring more in-house talent, which in the long run is a good thing. For SMEs, I think that in the end, the first battle is going to be survival. And then there are not enough products. I think Ken said something around. There are not enough products that meet them at their level, right? So a lot of the cybersecurity work, even doing sort of an annual audit, is expensive. And so a lot of that sort of work, they think, okay, we'll put it behind until we make more money. So the way to push it, I think, is that more cybersecurity services and products that are at their level need to be built in a way where it makes sense to spend. So it's not a big capex spend. It's a revolving it's a revolving sort of easier spend. And that's how we're going to attract. Either there's going to be one big example where somebody sees like a whole company go down because of a cybersecurity issue, or we're going to have to slowly grow. And I think from what I am seeing is a slow growth. There are more professionals, so more people will be hired in-house to do work rather than sort of use outside firms.
Thank you very much, Ethel. Kofi, can you give us your insights on this?
Thanks, Edward. I think Doc and Ethel has really touched on this topic, but I just want to add to it that when it comes to cybersecurity, just as they've mentioned, for an SLE, I mean the SME space, it is the least on the agenda. I mean, it's not going to add money to their pocket. It's rather going to take away from them. So nobody considers that. But again, from I want to say that from a government perspective, I would want to acknowledge the fact that as a country, we've done a lot when it comes to the cybersecurity space. We've gone beyond just setting out, directive and having in place certain guidelines for cybersecurity to even having an institution responsible for cybersecurity, which is a very good commitment from a government perspective. However, how can we take it beyond that, such that the institution that has been put in place on a commission can also think about how do we support the SMEs when it comes to cybersecurity, by way of ensuring that, because again, just like the doc said, when you put the collective of the SMEs together and the data and information that they currently sit on, when the hackers decide to exploit it, even from a fintech perspective, we'll be in trouble. So I think there has to be that fair balance by all stakeholders on how to support them. And I think Ethel is also passing the message across to us that we should also provide support for SMEs. We do. We actually provide support for SMEs. We've done a lot of trainings on cybersecurity, even helping them. What is the basic way by which they can protect their infrastructure and their crown jewels and all those things? I think we all have to do that to support the ecosystem to ensure that we are all secured. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Kofi, for your insightful contribution. So a question came in, and I think it's addressed to Dr. Kanashibe. Doctor, somebody mentioned, what is Ghana doing and talking about in the space of eSIMs, and how is that going to impact on this registration that is ongoing currently in the country?
So thank you. So I think the eSIM is basically, in the past, we were almost like eSIM, that we now moved to GSM, and then we got the eSIMs, the SIMs coming in. But we're going back to where now the SIMs will be embedded in the device, and you can activate them. What would happen is, I see that a lot of the high-end devices don't give you multiple SIM opportunities. So what then, if you have an iPhone, for example, you can only do one SIM. But now what this would do is that with your these high-end devices, your iPhones and all of that, you can have an additional SIM, but which is an electronic SIM, and you don't need to you can activate most of them. You can activate them, you know, on an app. Or if you take the Airtel Go one, for example, if you go to their shops, there's a QR code that you can activate them. MTN, you can go into their app and then be able to activate them. So you can have additional SIMs added to your device. The advantages of it is if you travel and you go in anywhere into any country, you can get that SIM, that eSIM without walking onto it. Now with a lot of IoT and all of that, and people needing multiple SIMs, you know, for different things, you can add them all as eSIMs. The thing now currently, and in terms of the SIM registration, is the current situation is that all the eSIMs you can get in Ghana would be on the back of a SIM that you already have. So you would have gone through the processes of doing your SIM registration. And you find out that if you try with any of them, they will ask for your Ghana card and all of that to be able to do that. I am sure going forward, we need, as we go forward, we might have to figure out how we handle eSIMs and you know, our current SIM registration. So the regulation would have to evolve, you know, to meet it, so that it's a lot more ubiquitous, it's a lot more agile. You don't have to go through the processes that are the way our SIM, the SIM registration have been done. But currently, because the two operators that are doing it, Airtel Go, then MTN, who are doing it, is on the back of a SIM that you already have, then that SIM would have done the SIM registration. And this additional eSIM that you're going to go would go through the common platform. So it would make sure that all of those details have been taken. But definitely it's a good service that is coming in, and I'm sure it would give us all the, you know, the flexibility we want to do. So you carry only one device and you can have multiple SIMs that are on there.
All right, thank you very much, Doc. Surprisingly, the next question I have from the audience is also to you. Is they want you to share a definitive 4G rollout and also add the discussions on 5G on top of it, if Ghana has it already.
Thank you. So a definitive 4G, so if you take them, currently we have two of the MNOs, MTN and Vodafone, who have 4G, and in all the urban, the district capitals, there's 4G presence in there. Already, government of Ghana also has the national roaming policy that would enable people to be able to roam, so that in places where your network provider is not there, as we get the national roaming to go, you then would be able to roam on somebody's network to be able to get that. And then you also see a lot of investments coming in from all the players, you know, so Vodafone is doing that, MTN is doing that. We know that Vodafone has been acquired by Telecom. I'm sure that Telecom, so I'm sure, you know, they might have plans to further expand. We know Airtel Go currently is government owned, but there's conversation to get, you know, an investor in there. I'm sure once that is done, they will do a rollout. My only hope, and, you know, I don't speak as a regulator here, so the roadmap would have to come from the NCA, is that the technology neutrality can happen. So that if Airtel Go, for example, are, you know, with the spectrum that they have, MTN with the spectrum they have, Vodafone with the spectrum they have, would also be able to, you know, provide 4G using refarming some of the spectrum they have already. And then if any of them would also be quick enough to do the 5G allocation, so that on the back of that, they would also be able to do that. The other thing is that we also have some BWAs, you know, so like Telesol, we have Selfline and all, who are also offering some 4G technology. So I'm pretty sure all of that will roll out. The thing about all of it is not just the coverage. It's about the bandwidth. It's about the spectrum that, you know, exists. Currently, there's a spectrum deficit in there, and we need to work together with the ministry from the policy point of view, with the NCA from the regulatory point of view, so that we can get a lot more spectrum to these operators. Another thing, you find out that even in places that you already have coverage, in the densely populated areas, because of the density and the need, the requirement you are finding out that the network qualities, the throughput you are getting is not as we used to do even with 3G. And one of the things that can solve that problem is the ability of planting new networks. And also with 5G as well, densification is going to happen because 5G, you're going to drive a lot more less power. So you might have to have towers close by, would have to be able to use light poles, you know, and in buildings and all of that. But it is important that the current tower regulations that we have, which is gone through a lot of review, we actually get that implemented. Because currently, if you want to get land for a tower in Accra, the setback rules are such that the size of land you need, you won't get it. It's not available. So we need to, government, and I know the NC has been working with this with the ministry, we need to get that particular guideline, the new revised guideline approved so that we can get, you know, do some infilling in some of these urban areas that require, you know, new towers being built to be able to improve connectivity in those areas. So there's a multiple level of things that we need to do. But another angle, and that's where people like Ken and all come in. We need to start developing a lot more content in our country, you know, because currently, if, you know, we don't have any of these streaming services, there are servers sitting in our country. So if you want to watch Netflix, you want to watch, you know, you need to leave, you know, the local infrastructure and go onto the international gateways. Is the reason why the cost is expensive for us. We need to start producing a lot more content locally and get people consuming so that they rather come into our space. And then if I want to consume content locally because the servers are sitting locally, I don't have to move away. We need to move away from even our email services are all outside. So I want to send you that, you know, webinar that we're having, you know, to be able to do, you know, the Zoom, we are not just using just our local networks, we are having to go out. So we need to develop a lot more of this content within our locality so that instead of moving out everywhere, you know, we can stay within the internal, you know, networks. That would reduce our cost, that would improve the speeds that we also have.
All right, thank you very much. I think I can engage you more on this, but I have another question, but this time is for Mr. Ken Ansa. Ken, we got this from our listeners on YouTube. They say, look, you've spoken about something that resonates with them. Citizens journalism is making advertising revenues very thin. I think that was one of your assertions you made. His question is, can media houses locally show more value, showing better CPMs, click per mile or something like that, demonstrating numbers via multiple levels of engagement?
Yes, it is possible, and the numbers are available. We can, for instance, in our case, share on our various platforms what the clicks are, what the views are, what the cumulative views are over a 28-day period, over a 14-day period. And so you will know what you get in terms of views if you were to put some content, advertising content on such platforms. So yes, that data is available. And Ken made the point earlier that, you know, in our space, I mean, on one hand, we are thankful that we have the digital media platforms or social media platforms because data isn't available, unfortunately. And so even if you want to see how many people watched a certain program at 7 p.m. on Saturday night or Sunday night, and then go to Ethel and say, Ethel, I want you to put some advert on this platform for me. If she asks the simple question, how many people watched this program? You can't answer. And you can't meaningfully convince advertisers when you don't have data. And data in its all senses, in terms of absolute numbers and in terms of the quality of that data, as in LSMs and age groups and all those who are consuming that content. It is important to an advertiser. So when you don't have it, in terms of free to air on terrestrial platforms, it is difficult to sell. And that is what digital platforms, you know, seek to solve, except that, as I said, you have to also make the content meaningful. But yes, data is available on all platforms to share and to show to people, advertisers, what is being consumed, when it is being consumed, how it is being consumed, the cumulative consumption numbers, and how then that becomes a potent platform to reach one's advertisers.
Are you able to break down the costs along this trajectory that you just mentioned?
In cost of, can you explain
so
that?
Cost of the last mile, basically, if you're getting clicks from all those areas, are you able to manage costs and therefore put in front of the advertisers how much each territory would be, the cost that will bring on board, the cost that will define what you charge them, basically?
I mean, one thing about digital platforms is that once you sit there, you are part of the global system. Mm-hmm. And so quickly, content that, for instance, so for instance, if you do radio content today on any of our radio platforms, say Joy FM or Love FM, the regulator says your radio content cannot go beyond 45 kilometer radius. That's it. For whatever reason, that is another thing. But your radio content can go beyond 45 kilometer radius. It used to be unlimited to 150 kilometer radius, to 100 kilometer radius, now to 45 kilometer radius. So someone who sits in a 60 kilometer radius region who used to consume you on a certain dial, 99.7 or 106.3, cannot consume you anymore. So now they have to have other ways of consuming that content. And so from a media point, you now have to come and use all other platforms made possible by technology. So from Spotify to TuneIn to Streaming Live to Facebook Live to, so many others. What that does is that it adds to your production cost. It adds to your content creation and distribution cost. But you are then able to suddenly tap into the global environment, and your content is now available to anyone to consume. It then becomes an issue of relevance. When you create content in a can, how many people are going to consume the global environment? And you have to then understand where these audiences sit before you can now say, I am going to talk to A or B to put an advertising on this video or on this audio. If it is news file, for instance, you have to also test where are people consuming from. If I put it on YouTube or I put it on any other digital platform, you are able to tell where the IPs are coming from and who is consuming what. And then you use that as information to now go to advertiser and say, yes, I'm getting X% from Germany, I'm getting Y% from America, I'm getting this. If then the advertiser feels, oh yeah, those are the people I want to tap into, then they are happy to now advertise. So it helps you reach a wider audience beyond what your traditional platform would have helped you do. But then you also have to answer the question of relevance. So you could be reaching so many people sitting in, let's say, Lithuania or Hungary. I mean, who wants to sell something to those people? The advertiser must also be convinced. So as I said earlier, there are always so many variables you are contending with, and you have to bring them all together and align them well, okay, to create the financial value you need to create. You can create the influence value, you can create the talkability value, but you must also come back and create the financial value, which will then feed the process for you to ride on the right technology and what is happening. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ansan. Now I have a very interesting question here. It's for you, Doc. It says, the telecom sector, is it lucrative enough? What is happening? Is it attractive? Why are operators shifting and moving and reinvesting and all that bit? Ghana was a conversation around Glow, Airtel, and Tigo, and now there's Vodafone. Please tell us a true story around this.
Well, thank you very much. The truth of the matter is that telecommunication is a very expensive business. Unfortunately for our country, if you look at the total tax reports that we do, for every 1 cedi that you pay to any telecom company, about 45 pesos goes back to government in the form of taxes. So it is the margins are really bad. Very few of the telecom players, have a healthy EBITDA, and then the cost of doing business is just in February, we had a 30% increase in utility bills. And if you take the tower companies, for example, the electricity, for example, is a huge chunk of their OPEX. So the margins are really, really compressed, and it requires a lot of investment. Constantly you are investing. And so it's the reason why you will find out that two players in the same strategic group, Airtel and Tigo, would merge because they want to reduce their cost and maximize their potential. It's the reason why you'll find out that Airtel will leave Ghana and sell Airtel Tigo to government at $1. Now you've had Vodafone selling its 30% away. 70. The industry is not, we see it and people look at it and we consider it as a cash cow, but it is. You ask yourself, why is it that the local players, the BWAs that were giving licenses, all of them are folded up? The telecommunication business is very high. And inflation is hovering around 50-something%. But telecom inflation, it's been flat, for a very long time. So it's a very difficult environment, and we need to work together. Governments, investors, users, all of us need to work together because it's a critical resource that we need, in our quest to be able to ensure that we leapfrog this developmental gap that we have. But a simple answer to that is that it's not a lucrative business. You need to have really deep pockets, to be able to turn it and make it lucrative. That's basically
that's the matter. So thank you very much, Dr. Ken, for your frank answer to this question. So I think without any other question from the audience, thank you very much, panelists. Thank you very much, Ethel. Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Ansah. Thank you very much, Dr. Ken, for your time with us this morning. Grateful, insightful, and I think the predictions we gave, although very high level and global, will have an impact locally, and businesses across all industries will be able to have some kind of information that can help them plan their strategy to the future. I hear there's one hand up, but I think we are almost out of time. So I will hand over to the technical team to see our next activity. Grateful for all of you who joined, and for the audience, number one, super. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Edward, and a very good morning to everyone. Special thanks to our panelists for the great work that you've done. For me, I'm pretty excited about all the predictions that relates to Ghana. I mean, with technology, you can never, just when you think you've seen it all, something pops up. And I think that it's very important that every year we come up with this report. So for me, I'm really excited about launching our TMT report. So what Edward did was a presentation and focused on just 8 aspects of the prediction. However, this goes beyond that. It's actually a very detailed, and this report represents months of hard work, from our team in the global TMT industry. They've spent so much time to put this together. So I am really proud to say that it provides the valuable insights, in the subject matter. There are 15 predictions, which we focus on 8. But the report actually looks at 15 predictions, which highlight the trends in the telecoms, the semiconductors, the screens and media, the technology, and mergers and acquisitions. So these predictions were focused on these 5 sectors, and it gives a lot of insights into that. We believe that the information contained, will help decision makers with their strategy as well. And it's our hope that this would also spark meaningful conversations and actions that would drive positive change within the industry. So without any additions, let me just say that I want to invite all of you to take out your phones, look for the QR code, read that, and scan the reports and read more into these predictions. We are hopeful that in our mission to create a better future for predicting the future, would all help to help businesses to achieve their strategy within the TMT space. Thank you very much, and please download the report for us. So whilst you're downloading, I'll just call on our TMT leader. Time is fast, and we have about 4 minutes to wrap up. So I'll call up on our TMT leader in the person of Mr. Kofi Awuah to wrap this conversation up for us And then also there'll be an assessment form for you to also give us your feedback on this webinar, how we can improve it, and some of the feedback that we can use to make the next webinar even better for all of you. So Kofi, if you can hear me, please, over to you to give us the closing remarks.
All right, thank you, Joseph and team. I really want to say thank you to everyone, especially our distinguished participants and panelists who have made today's event very successful. I must say that I really enjoyed the energy and the conversation that we had. And I want to say thank you, especially to our panelists. Please take note of this. We will keep calling on you to participate in these webinars and predictions, because it's a yearly event. We're delighted to have Dr. Ken last year, and this year we decided that we wanted to ensure that there is full representation across the telecommunication, the media, and the technology space. So I want to say thank you to every one of you. I want to acknowledge other partners who were able to join this webinar. I want to say thank you for making our time to be part of this. And I also want to say thank you to our other colleagues who are part of this webinar. It's been a fantastic conversation, and I will say goodbye and see you once more. See you again next year. Bye.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Make the leap. Bring what you do